Hey everyone, it's Maydad here, and tonight I'm joined with a special guest who does not need any formal introduction. He's our very own Hitman. I'm not talking about Tommy the Hitman Hearns, and I'm not talking about New Britain's Ricky the Hitman Hatton. I'm talking about Australia's very own Peter the Hitman Johnston, who is an NRL player who played for the Parramatta Eels and the Wollongong Steelers. He also played for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, tonight, Peter is going to be sharing with us a little bit about his journey and his career as a footballer and also life after football. Peter, thank you for joining us tonight. How have you been? And it's great to see you here.
Oh, good. Thanks, mate. Thank you for having me. And I'm very well, thanks. And it's good to be here.
Amazing. We caught up the other night at David Belovic's fight up at the North Sydney Leagues Club. Did you enjoy that night?
Yes, certainly. I did. I didn't. I knew of David. He's a relative of my brother-in-law, and he was having his first fight. So we want to get up there and support the family that's going up. So I went along. It was a good night. And I met up with yourself and that. But and he had a win on his first fight, so he was quite pleased with that.
Yeah, there was a few of you guys supporting him. I could hear you guys cheering when I was in the corner over,
Yeah,
over over everybody else. That was really good to get that support for him, and I think that really meant a lot to him. And he showed up that night, and he did really well to get the victory.
yeah. Either way, result would have been a win for him because I think it takes a big effort to get into the boxing ring, but. He's never apparently been that way inclined. I'm a bit surprised his family, but he certainly had a lot of support there with family and friends from school and that. And I'm sure that helped him on the night.
Yes, David, I think you're only as good as your homework, and David has definitely done his homework, and he prepared really well for that fight. Training camp leading up to the fight with all the sparring, both in our gyms and other gyms that he went to, he was on ball, and he was on the game, on his game, and he did really well. But Peter, it's so good having you here because we've been talking about having our little interview and Zoom session for a while now, and now you're here. I wanted you to share with us a little bit about your journey before becoming a rugby league player, where you grew up, what you were doing, some of the studies you were involved in, and anything else you could share with our audience.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I grew up at Castle Hill in the Hills District. I was born at Epping, but grew up at Castle Hill in Sydney's western suburbs in Parramatta region. So I was a Parramatta junior in that respect. But when I was younger, I played a lot of soccer, started soccer and little athletics. My auntie was an Olympic runner, Betty Cuthbert. She won 4 gold medals at the Olympics. So we had that athletic influence in our activities and our genes, I suppose. All the kids, I've got three siblings. There's 3 boys and a girl. And we all were into little athletics and soccer and that sort of thing. And the boys, we all played football at some stage, rugby for the school, bit of league, and that. And I ran in athletics till I was about 13 or 14, won state titles and Australian titles, and that's. I always had ambitions to perhaps go to the Olympics myself, but I had a break from it for several years, mid-teens, played football at school, rugby union. Left school and then I had a go rugby again with some mates who were playing down at Parramatta. And then I thought, well, if I want to be professional, I thought, I had more opportunity in rugby league at the time. And I thought I'd just switch to rugby league when I was 20 and I played about a dozen games for Hills District, which was a local junior rugby league club. And then I tried out for Parramatta in '89 and they signed me up. So it was a bit of a short apprenticeship before I got to league. I did play league for 1 year when I was 13. But so the main sports I did when I was younger was the soccer. Did a lot of soccer from the age of 6 and 7 in the winter time, and then summer was the athletics.
What position?
The discipline I got from athletics, particularly middle distance training, that's what held me in good stead with football. And I think in life, and just took note of what you said about the young boy the other night in boxing. He prepared well, he did the work, and I know through my preparation for any sport, anything in life, if you don't prepare well, if you don't prepare, what's the saying? If you don't prepare well, you're prepared to fail, if you know what I mean. So you've got to do the work, and I learned that from an early age, and the mental discipline and the mental toughness, if you like, I developed in little athletics, and that carried me through football, which was a good asset to have.
Amazing. Peter, just been joined by one of my good friends and a rugby league fanatic, Rob White. Rob White, can you hear me? How are you, Rob?
Yeah, good. Can you hear me, mate?
Yes, I can. Can just mute yourself for a second. Just here with Peter and say good day if you like.
Yeah,
G'day,
g'day,
Rob.
Peter.
How are you?
I'm a Roosters supporter, but I'm not a bad bloke. Otherwise, no one's perfect, right? No,
Yeah.
He won't hold that against you. Not yet. No.
that's
Oh,
good.
no,
A
actually,
lot of people do.
we were Eastern Suburbs supporters as kids. We all supported the Roosters. My elder brothers, and we all used to buy the rugby league, big league, and then Artie beats, and we followed it. I remember back to the 75, 76 grand final.
Yeah,
Well,
I was
70,
there, Peter. My dad took me there 74, 75. We beat St George 38-0
yeah,
in the
38
grand final.
nil. Yeah, I remember those days. I was about 5 years old. 60, I was born in 68, so I would have been 7 years old. But
Yeah.
I remember being at a picnic party out at 𝙈𝙤𝙮𝙗𝙗 Dam, and I said, "What's the score?" I asked one of the parents. They said, "East won 38-0."
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. It was, but they had a fantastic side. But
Was that the year when Peter Morris had a sore ankle?
Uh,
I'm joking with you.
Yeah.
I thought I don't recall that. No, that was the year when
He wasn't even there.
Graham Langlands had the
Graham Langlands with
needles.
the white boots.
Yeah, the white boots, and he had the needle, and they reckon he was a little bit disadvantaged because he needled up too much before the game. But
Yeah.
East had that was one of the best club sides in history. I would think that's 74, 75.
Yeah, I was raised on the Chooks, Peter, and my dad played rugby for Randwick as well, and his ashes are on Coogee Oval. He was mad Roosters and Randwick and rugby, mate. Yeah, so I was raised on both rugby codes, actually. Born and bred in Clovelly.
Oh, well, you know plenty of the history, and you're right in the heart of it, yeah.
Rob, why don't
Yeah.
you show your picture? We can't see you. It's all black. Show your picture.
I don't know. I'm a newbie to this, mate. I'll get it sorted for next time. At least you can hear me voice. My head's that ugly, I might break the screen anyway. So
Don't say that. Anyhow, just getting back to some of the questions, Pete, can you
yeah,
tell us?
I'll shut up now. I don't want to hear Peter's story, so I'll listen to you and Pete having a chat.
Sure. Thanks, Rob.
You all right?
Pete, can you tell us a little bit about your auntie? You said she's a gold medalist. She had 3 gold medals. Can you tell us what distance is and what was her name again?
Her name was Betty Cuthbert. It's my mum's twin sister, and she's won 4 gold medals for Australia. She won 3 at the 1956 Melbourne Olympics. She won the 100, 200, 400 at 18. 100, 200, 4x4 relay, 4x1 relay. She's 18 years old, and then she went to the 1960 Rome Olympics, but she was injured, so she couldn't compete, and she retired. And then she just had that motivation to come back, and she came back in 1963 and won the 1964 Tokyo Games. And there's the first 400-meter run by women at Olympics, and she won that. So she won. That was in total 4 gold medals, and it's the only person actually in history, male or female, to ever win the 1, 2, and 4. People have won the 2 and 4, the 1 and the 2, but no one's won the 1, 2, and 4. So, and she passed away several years ago now, in 2017, 18, and that was mum's twin sister. But as I said to you, mate, that's where I started my journey in sport, if you like, in little athletics, and I found the mental discipline and the training was really benefited me as later in life with the football experience I had.
Amazing. Obviously it runs in the family. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and in this case, it definitely doesn't. Peter, can you tell us your first step into the professional NRL league as a rugby league player, playing with some of these top players? Can you recall some great moments? I know we've got a good friend, a mutual friend that we both know, Craig Fields, that I grew up with when I was a kid roaming around Bondi and Paddington and that. And I was speaking to him the other day, and he mentioned you. Can you tell us a little bit about knowing him and your friendship with him at back in the when you played for Souths?
Yeah, first, my introduction to rugby league was I switched. So I played a few years after I left school. I played rugby at school. After I left school, I gave it all up when I was 18. I did a bit of travel for a year, and I come back at 19, and mates were playing for Parramatta Rugby Union, so I decided to go down there. Had a year down there, and I went quite well. Made the New South Wales 19 side, and from that I just got a bit more motivated, and I thought, well, I always wanted a professional sporting career, if you like. In those days, there's only really soccer and rugby league were the professional games. In those days, a lot of blokes were switching from rugby union to rugby league to get the big dollars. Brett Papworth and that. I remember those guys went to Eastern Suburbs actually in those years, the late 80s. And I thought when I was 20, I thought, I'm just going to forget. Started rugby for Parramatta. I thought I just got keen, itchy feet. I thought I just want to go straight down. So I switched 1 week, went down to Hills District, which is the local club where I lived at Castle Hill. I played 10 rugby league games, and I just spoke to anyone and everyone, whoever I could, to let them know I was going to come down to the trial. You know, you try and build up as a young kid. You know, you're trying to do it. You got to push yourself. You know, physically, but you got to try and open the doors a little bit because it's selection, and you got to let them know you're coming. And I think John Maney knew I was coming too, which is someone. But I went down. There's 3 weeks of trials, and I played quite well, and I got a contract. I remember I've always said to this day, one of the biggest elations I got from achievement personally from football was when my little brother was playing for Parramatta at the time, under 16s, under 17s, and he hit the coach. His coach was a manager. He was on the board, and he knew who was being selected. I hadn't heard for a couple of weeks. I remember when he come home, I said, "How'd it go? They selected the squad there for the 21s?" And he looked at me, he said, "You got in." And I said, "Oh, beauty." Because then I thought, I'd got it, and I thought I can control my destiny then. It was a bit of a jump to get into the 21, so I didn't have the experience in rugby league. I'd only played that 1 year. And so then I went on to play under 89 with Parramatta, and it was just a thrill for me to play with some of those guys like Sterling, Kenny, and those guys I grew up watching, and I always saw them in the first grand final in 81 at SCG, because we used to get tickets through my auntie's association with, she was on the membership for on the board, SCG board. So we got tickets from 1976 to when she passed away, 2017. 30 years of members tickets for big events. So we went to all the grand finals, and I saw the Parramatta one in 81, 82, 83, and 86. And then it was a thrill to be playing with and training with guys like Peter Sterling, Brett Kenny, Eric Groth, those sorts of guys. So that was a thrill for me.
What about the man himself, Ray Price?
Unfortunately, Ray Price had retired. Then that was a bit of big discern. I've seen him over the years many times. I always go up to him and say, mate, I admired the way he played the game. He was a real driving force of that Parramatta side. And a lot of people don't know, when you start talking about Ray Price, he was acknowledged as one of the best rugby players of all time. Forwards, not a back. It's very hard the difference between a back and a forward, but he played in the 1972 tour of Great Britain for the Wallabies, and come from Parramatta. He's only a young guy, and he was phenomenal. I remember 1976 grand final when Parramatta lost. Ray Price played, and it was his second year of rugby league. He played 75 and 76, and they got in the grand final. He played in 77. I saw that ground. We were at that ground too. So it was a real. It's always been. The first thing I remember is an honour to meet him. Is just a hero of mine when I was a young kid. But I really was always thought if I was just a few more years older and he was stayed around a little bit longer, I would have played with him. So anyone who's played with him, one of the older blokes I meet I played with and against, and I went on to play for the South, and that I always asked, what was it like playing against Ray Price and because he was a phenomenal athlete, and just his mental toughness and his will to win, it was surpassed by nobody. He was a real hero of mine to watch play.
Amazing. Pete, can you tell us a little bit about your journey at the South, playing for South? Now, I know you played with a good mate of mine, Craig Fields, a guy that I grew up with here in Bondi, and I hung out with him. He used to come to my house. I used to go to his house, and we used to hang out together. He used to live at Paddington back in those days, and we all used to hang out down the beach together down here at North Bondi. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and the first time Craig Fields joined your team?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure. I only played South Sydney 2 years for 92 and 93, but I'm pretty sure, and Craig would be able to tell you he's when he debuted. But I know he debuted in 93 when we were at South Sydney, and we were looking for a halfback. I remember training in Redfern. We're training. I think Tugger Coleman was injured, and we had another 5'8" we didn't have anyone the 5'8" couldn't play halfback. I remember a few of us spoke, I was saying, told the coach, Frank Curry at the time, bring Fieldsy up. Fieldsy's going great. And then, I don't know, there was always a little bit at the time because everyone thought, well, is he ready for it yet? Because he was only a young guy and he's a little bit slight at the time he's built. But I remember he had a go, and I wasn't surprised. I was a real fan of. I remember said, bring him up. I said, look, because the field forwards were saying he'll be good because he can organise. He's got a good kicking game. He had all those key elements of a good halfback from the start, a good talker. And I remember the first week he got in, he made an impact, and he played the rest of the season, I think, in the side, whether he's on the bench. So Tugger would have come back and played the main halfback, but Fieldsy was in the side. I remember that from that point on, most weeks onward. But he's a good player, Fieldsy.
I got a text message earlier on from him. I'm going to be interviewing him as well, but we've got some great memories as kids growing up. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey and life after football? Because on the 7th of June to the 15th of June is Men's Mental Health Week. And when it comes to retirement, when it comes to any athlete or anybody who's held a position in a corporate job or an entertainer, a performer, a dancer, a singer, a movie actor, a politician, whatever that status they've held in the past, when that comes to an end, there are some vulnerabilities with withdrawal symptoms. And it is those moments and those times where most men, even at the age of 55, our age or older, still don't have the skill set and the psychological tools to deal with the transition of retirement or moving on to something that they aren't familiar with. And that is when they can become very vulnerable, maybe get a little bit depressed, touch the drink, substance abuse, and maybe even lead to depression and even suicidal thoughts. So the week of June from the 7th to the 15th is Mental Health Week for men. And I wanted to ask you if you could share with me your time when you retired from football, how you felt with that journey and that trajectory and going out to doing the things that you are doing now, spending more time with your family and moving away from being a professional rugby player.
Yeah, look, it certainly is a transition, and some people cope better with it than others, and there's a lot of pitfalls out there. It's not like anything you hear people with retirement. I think you got to be planning for it a little bit before it happens, and then maybe some other things. And in my situation, I was in the middle. I'd just done I was a carpenter by trade. I started that when I started my football career. When I was 20, actually, the year when I was playing union, I completed that trade, but I wasn't a good carpenter. I couldn't even hit my thumb with a hammer, and I wasn't very good. Didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the motivation so much. But what I did have the motivation for was I started a PE teaching degree. So I like sport and education and passing on the knowledge and some of the skills and that sort of thing. And so I started a PE teaching degree when I was 25. And then when I went to Wollongong, I was transferred down, like Illawarra, I was transferred down there. When I finished rugby league, I only had about 6 months to go, because it came all of a sudden, actually, because I was 29 at Parramatta, and I went on a honeymoon. I got married. I was about to go and get married, and I heard from that I'd been sacked or put. One of the blokes cut from Parramatta, Brian Smith, cut about a dozen blokes, and I was one of them. I wasn't informed or anything. In those days, it was a lot harder to get hold of people. There's only phones, I suppose. And at the time, I was just told that they tried to call me, but I was running around planning for a wedding. And so I went over to South Africa on a honeymoon, and I continued my career. I played rugby I did a bit of coaching of South African rugby side, Natal Sharks. And so that was good. I kept that association with rugby a little bit for a few years, did a bit of coaching. I went and I'd come back, I'd retired for a year, come back to Australia when I was married, and I played another year of rugby up in Sydney, and that was it. And then to the transition, I was, the whole time I was ticking away with my PE teaching degree on the side. So when I was 32, I think I graduated, and I got actually lucky enough to get straight into the job to one of the local schools here as a full-time PE teacher. I did that for 3 years, and then then my wife works for Qantas as a flight attendant. So we're just starting to have some family. The kids were little. One of the son was born little bit young, and I looked for an opportunity that would, I'd give some flexibility. So I looked around and I got into the Subway franchise and the food. It's a small business. So I've been doing that for 20 years and I still do a bit of casual teaching now. So I've just mixed those two things. But on the point, of like a bit of a change in routine, it can be a bit negative. I think I've seen it happen. I've felt it myself. I think it's life. Everyone feels changes. But I think if you've got to you have a bit of a plan and stick to a bit of routine with your discipline as far as, your fitness and your diet, your sleep, all those types of things that help make your sporting career and your achievements possible, if you like. You just got to stick to them when the times are a little bit more uncertain, if you like.
Yeah, you just got to keep consistent and have those habits going, I guess.
Yeah.
I think as one of the things I've noticed with when I'm relating to everything that you're saying, Peter, is when I gave up my sport and stuff like that, and becoming a father, becoming a husband, getting married, being a business owner, you just don't have that time, even if you to put into sport the way you did when you were young, growing up, when you had nothing to worry about. But train and stuff like that. Turn up the training, mum and dad would cook for you. Everything was done for you. The washing was done for you. Anything you needed was done. But as an older man, you just have those responsibilities are all on you, and life does change. But the fact that we keep connected to something that is such an important part of our character, whether it be rugby league, boxing, tennis, athletics, soccer, whatever it may be, I think it's so important for our mental health. And as men, because I think most men are a lot more physically connected than they are spiritually connected or intimately connected than women. Women could do knitting or do some spiritual things and stuff like that. I'm not saying they don't have the same feelings and emotional needs that we do, but most men, I think, do need to be connected to something when they give up a career like you have or like I have. Peter, I know you talked about your subways and that. Can you tell us a little bit where they are, the stores?
Oh, just in Wollongong. I've got one. I had two at one point in Wollongong, but just one now. It keeps me pretty busy. There's always something going on, which is good. But I was trying to think, but it's always keeps you busy. But sorry, I was trying to think of something you were saying before. I thought I could jump in there, but I didn't want to jump in. But it's lost. I might think back of it as we go.
That's okay, Pete. And obviously, life after football has been pretty good to you. You're a family man. You got kids. And you're doing some great things. You're teaching and stuff like that. Can you give any advice to young kids growing up today? Because obviously, I know that all of us here tonight can relate to this. When we were growing up, I'm giving away our age a little bit here because we're all over 50, but can relate to the fact that we had so much time outdoors playing British, bulldog, playing touch football, playing soccer, playing tips, hide and seek, building cubby houses, building billy carts, just running around, surfing, skateboarding, doing all kinds of things, getting dirty, rolling around in mud and stuff like that. Where today, I guess it's a sign of the times. Most of the kids today are on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, Snapchat and all that sort of stuff. And it really has changed the way young kids are brought up and their ability to have the neural skills that we did when we were growing up. What sort of message do you have for young kids today?
Yeah, I agree. I see that at schools and that, like as kids, they try and ban phones and that to some extent, but the kids have always got them out and occasionally. But it's a real connection they have with their technology, which is a bit of a disconnection with each other and other people and society. A lot of people have that. It's a problem society faces across the board. But I don't know what the solution is because I'm never going to get rid of it. But I think it's something the kids have got to be educated, I suppose, at a young age because they don't know to limit their time. But then through talk and conversation, kids can see. You can see the difference. Those who are outside and enjoying the sunshine, the activities and the sport, there's more opportunities, more health. And generally, people are happier than, if they've got it. But it's finding the right balance, Not that there's anything wrong with the technology and being a computer and all that, but you've got to find in today's society, it can be very time consuming. So you've got to find that right balance. But it's difficult. What the answer is, I don't know. But you hear this mental health talk now. It's right across the board, men, women, children. And I do think, and I'm sure you do, and we've discussed it, most people think too much technology over the years for society. It's taking a lot of people down with it, if you know what I mean. It's got its benefits, but it's got its negatives, and we just got to be mindful of that whilst we're going through.
I think you touched on something really important, Peter, and you talked about mental health and psychology. And I do believe at some point, where this situation with TikTok and AI and all that is only going to get more and more busier. The market is going to get drenched with all this stuff coming in, with digital, digital world that we live in. I do believe, and it's a personal belief, and I can only speak for myself, and I can speak about the way I see my family and the way I see myself doing what I do as a father, as a husband. And I believe an important member to my community because I've got a gym with 100 or so many people coming in every week, and so I get a chance to build connection with them. And I'm a strong believer that anytime we get a chance to talk to somebody, just like now, tomorrow when we meet somebody in the street, and that is another opportunity, regardless of how long we've met that person, to build that connection, to strengthen that bond, and to strengthen that relationship with that particular person, regardless of how well we know them. But I do believe that behavioral science is a subject that I delved in, and I delved in it for many reasons. One, obviously, I wanted to see life after sport. Um, Also, with my autoimmune diseases and stuff like that, I wanted to understand a little bit more about my trajectory and how to prepare for, you know, improving my health and wellness, living healthier, eating healthier. And I always did. But I do believe that behavioral science is a subject that could be and should be allocated and pushed to students from year 7 onwards and educating them to understand the study of behavioral science, to communicate with each other, and to understand internal dialogue. I think one of the biggest problems today with social media and the 3 stages of human growth, especially that teens period, that socializing period, kids and young people are so easily influenced and led to live a certain way, to try and be a certain way. And it can be very harmful, And I think with understanding behavioral science, it gives them a chance to, reflect and understand and be able to process the situation and themselves at that particular stage and that particular of growth a lot easier. But
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, mate. It's the evidence is there, and the behaviours are there, and the problems are there. So it's up to the adults, if you like, I suppose, to be a bit more vigilant on things, and the kids to be aware of things and be accepting of things people say to them, and as they mature. And there is problems if you go down that path too far.
Sure is. I think it's so important. I don't know. It sounds like you've had a really good upbringing and you've had good role models, obviously, around you with family as athletes. And obviously, to be a successful athlete, you have to be disciplined. So it has to run in the family. And I know my father, who represented Israel in the Rome Olympics also in 1960, I believe you said your mother's sister went there as well. My dad was there for cycling. Although he didn't do great, he came about number 17th in the race. Um, I think he got a puncture and he had to use a Swiss rider's bike, and that was too big. The frame was too big, and he struggled to finish race also, although he did finish. Um, but I think, as I say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I think it shows. It shows between with what you've done with your career, what I've done with my career, and other people, and that's a testament and a legacy. And the reason I called everything I do, and even that background that you see behind me, the footprints that we lay for others to follow. So when we're no longer here, we're laying that legacy for our children to follow and leave their own footprints and pass that on and so forth. But Peter, it's been amazing talking to you tonight. Um, What's your message, my final question, to any of the young kids struggling with some difficulties at school, struggling with mental health, struggling with something, wanting to get into sport, the positive effects that you feel getting involved in sport and being active can do to them, to their mental health, and bring their self-esteem, get them confident, and bring them out of their shell?
Yeah, well, I just believe a couple of things you said it touched on. Family. I've always said that faith, family, and friends are the most important thing in life. The three F's, you know. And I grew up in a Catholic. I went up to a Catholic school, Christian upbringing. So that's been very important to me, and it's certainly helped me with my life and football. And that's why I'm just touching on that. I'm very impressed with the way the Polynesian boys, they all get together in the prayer after the game, and they're not afraid to show their faith and that. And I think that's good. And I think it's a good thing for society, particularly when those Penrith boys can do it. Like, you don't see anyone throwing stones at them. I think it's a good message. I think it's really good, like a thing, the introduction to they're brought into our society, and certainly our football. I think it's good. And faith, family, like as I said, I know my father said that to me, talk about role models. I remember my dad said that to me when he's passing away, and I spent the last couple of weeks with him in the hospital, and he said, like, the three F's, faith, family, and friends. And I like to think, it's those messages stay with you, and then your friendships you build up over the years. And as you said, all those type of things, you've got to combine them, hopefully in the best ways possible. When you're going well too, you don't forget when you're going well, and then when you need to fall back on it through things like, change your career, change your retirement, loss of a loved one, all those types of things, you fall back on your values and your principles and that. And I think if we can think the right things and practice the right things, I think it all helps. I mean, no one goes through life untouched or not facing challenges, but those things I found, you mentioned the family and the friendships, and I found with myself the faith. If you got that, it's been a big part of my life, and it's helped me. You try and pass it down to your own kids and that sort of thing. And so, as you say, the footprints you follow, the footprints you leave too. You want to leave them
A legacy.
So I found those three things of you try and base your life around those sort of principles, and then also the practical things like we discussed, the mental health. You've got to be active. You got to be active. You're never going to be in a great mental state if you're in four walls all the time. I think going for a walk every morning. I go for lots of walks, and I like to do something most mornings, whether it's a gym session or a walk. But I like to walk 3 or 4 times. We live in a nice area down here, Wollongong, and I find that's just to get outside, get a routine going, and you accomplish something. The old saying, like in the old book I've read, make your bed in the morning, just to do those basic things, and the first thing, at least you achieve something, and then you build on it. You keep your room. I tell the kids, keep your room tidy. All those, you do the basics in life. Start with the small things, and the small things will grow. And that's a bit like success too.
There's a bit of a psychology behind that in the army when they get you to do your beds fast and do it early and do it it's nice and neat and properly. And the psychology, as you sort of hit on when you were talking then, is to achieve something, to take responsibility, and to just do something really positive from the moment you get up.
Yeah.
And it sets you up. It really does set you up with something throughout your day. I'm kind of lucky because I've got this really nice routine where I have a cold shower, I do my prayer, I fix my bed up, I go out and have a hot lemon drink, I come back and meditate, I do my breath work, I do my journaling, take my vitamins, and I'm off to work. And I feel like it's all personal because it's different strokes for different folks, but it's something that has worked for me, and it's become so embedded in me that if I don't do it, I feel like I've missed something out, because it kind of really sets me up for the day. But I mean, like, you don't have to go to the extreme that I do or that other people do, but a simple thing is just fixing your bed up and just being disciplined and consistent does really show in the quality of life that we live. But Peter, it's great talking to you.
Hey, Matt, can I jump in? Just before you go,
I was just going to say, Rob, do you have any questions for Pete?
Yeah, I just want to ask Peter one thing. Peter, I'm very pleased to see and hear you speak well. You look healthy. You played in an era that was hard and tough, and guys were getting knocked out, and it was seen as a badge of honor to stay on the field. How many head knocks did you have where you were like fully concussed?
When I first started doing the bigger tackles and going in for the bigger tackles, because what led to that, because I didn't have much ability with the ball, so I thought the only way I could make more of an impact without the ball.
Yeah, well, you would have rattled a few bones yourself, but how many times did you get rattled where your head was spinning and stuff?
You find most head knocks people are getting are not when they got the ball; it's when they try making tackles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the wrong place. I got knocked out cold, I reckon, 3 or 4 times. But what cold I mean is in once I was lay there for a little bit. Once for a minute I think I was out for a minute. Another cold time I was out for 10, 15 seconds. But then I probably got concussed and dazed a dozen times.
Yeah, I thought I'd ask that question when you guys were talking about mental health and the mental health part of this. How I'm good mates of. You would have played against him. His name was Shannon Nevin. He was fullback for Manly in the 1997 grand final. And when Darren Albert scored that try and beat them on the bell, Shannon was 21. He played fullback that day. He told me he got knocked out 15 times. Right. Now, he's in his late 40s, and he's got it all pretty much together like you have, but he's starting to get forgetful. He's forgetting people's names. He played with Mark Spud Carroll. You would have played against Mark Carroll. I'm sure you know Spud.
Yeah, Spud's a good mate of mine. Poor old Spud's struggling a bit with head knocks and stuff, and it doesn't hit you till you're mid to late 50s, apparently. And you're at that age now. I'm 57. I've done boxing. I'm one of Maydad's trainers, and I've fought before, but I never got knocked out, not because my defense was any good, but I got looked after pretty well. And I've lost a brother to suicide. I'm in a mental health support group. If you haven't got your if you haven't got your health, you got nothing, of course, but mental health's really important to me. I'm happy to see that despite the knocks you would have got, it hasn't affected you later in life, Peter. So that's really good to see, mate. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Maybe if my wife was here and my kids, they'd have a bit of a different story to tell you.
I bet, yeah.
But generally, I'm pretty good. Like if I. Yeah, everyone forgets things, and that's just a normal part of life.
I get forgetful myself, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, I think what's good, but back to what Maydad said about the routine and the good diet and the good sleep. If you treat your body like you don't give yourself proper sleep and you eat rubbish and you drink too much alcohol and you take drugs, you're going to feel more.
Just before I go, Peter, that's been pretty much me. I got dragged into. Just to quickly give you my story, and I thought I'd wait till the end. I got dragged into boxing when I was 35, and I'm 57 now, and I was smoking weed every day. I was drinking 30 cigarettes a day as well, going nowhere with my life. And I was just a silly party boy. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I'd had no trauma I was running away from. I grew up in Coogee and Clovelly in the eastern suburbs, and it was party central, and but so many of my mates are still drinking and smoking, but it's their mental health. They're not enjoying life at all. And I'm just really pleased for people that come through a tough sport like boxing and rugby league, obviously, that have made some stupid decisions with poor lifestyle choices like I did, that can come out the other side and maybe inspire people to as you're doing with your kids and everyone you've got something to do with. And Maydad's doing the same, quite obviously. Life's very precious, mate, and it's good to see you come through pretty well despite the knocks, mate. Rugby, I played rugby league for the mighty Clovelly Crocodiles, Victor Radley's team, mate, and not at a high level, but I copped the hits. And mate, rugby league's a whole lot tougher than boxing, and I've done both. So credit to you.
Rugby league's tough, you reckon?
Yeah, mate. Well, with rugby league, you got 3 or 4 monsters waiting to smash you, and there's only one in the boxing ring. You had a great career, mate, and I'm glad that you had a good career and you've come out of it healthy, mate. So it's good to see.
Peter, I've got an itch. I've got an itch in my eye. See that itch in my eye? Peter, Rob never had me a dummy half. That's why.
Yeah, I probably could have used you, mate. Yeah.
Talking about boxing, I'm a big fan of the boxing, and one of them a big fan of the boxing. I've always liked it because it's a one-on-one, and I know a bit like my athletics, you had to face it yourself. So you take
Yep.
all the responsibility. But I've always liked watching the big fights. And today, believe it or not, I was a bit bored. I'm a casual PE teacher, so I'm not the casual teacher. I'm a bit bored. I flicked up the greatest rounds of all time. And, of course, the number one round was
Hagler and Hearns.
Hagler and Hearns are the number one round.
Yeah.
What a fight, 85.
What about
Yeah.
Diego Corrales versus Castile? What a fight that was.
I've probably seen it, but I'm not. Talking about fights in recent years, the second fight, or third fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. What a fight that was.
Wow.
There were 5 knockdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
unbelievable.
I pretty much think Deontay Wilder's pretty finished, to be honest with you. Good
I
on him.
think he is now, yeah.
He's an overachiever. He relied on that tremendous
Anyway,
thunder.
mate, I'm gonna go finish my dinner, mate. Really good to meet you, Peter. And one more thing too, mate. That's very humble. He's actually the Fred Astaire of Sydney boxing trainers. We call him Twinkle Toes. He's the man with the golden feet, mate. And there's no trainer like him, and he's been a good friend to me, and I'm happy and proud to say that I'll work for him at Bondi Boxing Gym. But, mate, he was a very, very clever boxer himself, mate. Don't make no bones about that.
Oh, I'm sure. No, I can see he's got the build for it. And he's done a good job with our relative in his first fight. So he had a win.
He likes embarrassing me. He loves embarrassing me.
You're too bashful. You're too bashful, mate, Dad. You're too humble.
All right.
Anyway, mate, Dad, I'll see you later on during the week. And Peter, lovely to meet you, mate. And
nice to talk to you, mate. All the best. Good luck with everything.
Okay. You too. See you, mate.
Thank you. Bye.
We're going to finish talking here, Pete. But I'm going to just conclude on a note with this. We've spoken about mental health being such a huge problem in men, and we've also spoken about that from the 5th of June to the 15th of June is Mental Health Week. Actually, it was the 7th of June to the 15th of June is Men's Mental Health Week. And in saying that, we're running a really cool event right here in Bondi, everybody. It's called the Footprints Half-Day Retreat, which is going to be run for half a day, and it starts at 5:45 a.m. on Bondi Beach just before sunrise. We're going to be doing yoga on the beach with breath work, human movement, and yoga. We're going to practice mindfulness, and then when we conclude that session, we're going to walk back up to the iconic Bondi Boxing Gym, where we're going to run our functional training, boxing, and fitness class. After that, we're going to be treated to our acai bowls, detoxing smoothies, and some healthy meals. And we're going to move on to some neural transformation therapy sessions, followed by some vision sessions and empowering psychological goal setting sessions. The short retreat is going to conclude when we're going to walk up to Nimbus Health and Wellness Studios. We're all going to have an ice bath and conclude the half-day retreat with delicious acai bowls. Now, if you want to learn more about these half-day retreats, give me a call on 0402 622 662 or simply email me at ynvhealthandwellness@hotmail.com. To all of you watching us here tonight, from Peter and I, have an amazing evening. Don't forget, next week, I'll be joined with another special guest, same time, same place, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, and we'll be talking to somebody about their journey and any philosophy and sharing some insights on the health and wellness industry. Until then, from Peter and I, have an amazing evening, and we'll see you next time.